think this talk's going to have a different tone than you guys are used to compared to Soryu's talks. Probably won't use the word vow, or won't talk about the environment too much. In fact, when Soryu, my honest reaction when I found out I was going to talk was hate and anger. That's my honest reaction. And actually, a couple months ago, Soryu asked me. He actually asked me to talk. He said, could you do the Sunday night sit? And I was like, no, I hate the guided meditations. I hate the talks. I am not giving a talk. I will not do that. And he was like, oh, you're here. Like, it's important that, I understand, but I won't, do it. I will, maybe I have to leave. Maybe I should, I was like, I will pack my bags and leave before I give a Sunday night talk. It was a very uncomfortable conversation for me. I don't know how Soryu responded to it, but and then but it will happen. It was kind of like what he said, and I was like, I will pack my bags. That was my reaction. And then yesterday, before the Saturday retreat, after we were breaking down from breakfast and we were setting things up, and Soryu said, Chris and Anna, I need to talk to you out front. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what he was going to talk about. We went over to the tree. There's a bench out there. And he didn't ask. He said, I need you to teach. I need one of you to teach the second half of the retreat today, and I need one of you to lead the Sunday night sit, and let me know what the decision is before the retreat begins. And he just walked away before I could say anything. I was like, I got to go explain why this is a bad idea and why I won't do it. I will pack my bags, Soryu. That was my reaction. In fact, Anna, did I look like a happy camper? What was my face like? Something like that. So it was it was actual hate and anger. I was like, I will not. It was just like an explosion, just. And then, I don't know all of the reasons why, but for one, we had to give half hours. We had to do what I'm doing right now and what Anna did a few weeks ago, the 2 hours we have. We had to do that during our teacher training period a few months ago. We did in a half hour, and we did that a number of times, 4 times or something. And I was like, I'm tapped out. I don't have any more stories. I don't know. What am I going to talk about? And so that was one of my concerns. But also I just had I think what it was is that I felt like I was being put in a position where I was going to either have to be a fraud or a hypocrite. Now I say fraud because I don't feel like I don't consider myself a mindfulness teacher. I don't feel competent to teach mindfulness. It feels a bit like I barely know how to swim. Someone else is kind of struggling or about to drown. If I just swim up to them without a life preserver or anything, we're both going down. We're both going to sink. And I felt like, all right, if I go in that room tomorrow, everybody's going to sink. We're just going to drown, and it's going to be ugly. And I also thought that maybe I'd be expected to follow this format of hey, mindfulness saved my life, and I love it, and it's great. And I'm going to teach it to you guys, and you guys are going to love it. It's going to be awesome. And then you can go out and change the world and talk yeah, let's go. But that's just not where I am in my practice. I thought I'd be a hypocrite, because as I hinted at, I don't like the Sunday talks for a few reasons. For one, I have a lot of social anxiety, and that's been a lifelong thing. So just like it takes a lot. I've worked on it a lot, so it's not maybe that apparent or that bad, but it takes a lot of energy just to be out and like interact with people and just like to not look like an asshole, because like the easy thing, you know, is just to not talk to people and like go in a corner or something. But you know, I have to work on that, and it saps a lot of my energy. And I don't enjoy guided meditations and the talks, and it actually causes a lot of irritation in me. And I thought that sort of hypocritical. Like, why would I, if it causes so much irritation in me, like why would I share that with other people? It's like taking a drink of something like, this tastes terrible, drink it, you know? And I'm at a point right now where I feel like my position on mindfulness, like I'm here because I want to get out of suffering. That's why I'm here. But I can't say mindfulness is really effective. Although I will say I think it's the best option out there for getting rid of suffering, and I think it's not that effective. Like that's the position of, like, so it's like early 90s internet where it's like dial up and slow, and it like cuts out a lot, and it's like, I don't know, I think we got a ways to go. At least I know I do. So I don't really like feel like what am I doing here? So like, how do I not be a fraud or a hypocrite? And I don't know if I can avoid the hypocrisy part, because you know, here we are, and hopefully you find this useful. But one, I could have just avoided it. I could have like, all right, I'm going to go find sorry here, A, B, and C. These are the reasons I shouldn't do this or whatever. I'm just not going to do it. First of all, I didn't do that because that's just like a punk behavior. That's not the person I want to be. It's also a broken strategy. It doesn't work. Because I'm just avoiding suffering, which is what I've been doing my entire life. Then I thought, well, I could just go up there and just be honest about what my experience is. And I thought, wait, and that would actually be a pretty powerful statement. Because what I'm doing right now is a demonstration of that. I'm not avoiding suffering. You know, the broken strategy of there's something I don't want to do, and I'm not going to do it, or that, you know, I hate that, I'm not going to do that, or that's awkward, I'm not going to do that. And we think we can like avoid it, but it's really just a detour, because you're going to come across that again. You can't hide from suffering. It's going to find you, or it doesn't even have to look, because it knows where you are. It's a big problem. Suffering's a big problem. And it's really sneaky, you know? Like, it's sneaky, and it's like, and that's the whole thing. Like, you know, this talk is a demonstration of how I respond to hate and anger now. This is my response to hate and anger. Because I'm not kidding when I don't want to do this. Like, that was hate and anger. And the old pattern is, well, then F it, like, let's not do it. And then it's, all right, well, what if I did do it? And this is so we're finding out right now. This is, what if I did do it? So that's essentially what this whole talk's about. So if nothing else, it's a demonstration of, you know, I'm going head to head with this thing. This is the confrontation strategy. Like on the spiritual path, you can take detours. That's just going to take it longer for you to get to the destination. You just go straight through, no detours. Keep walking, going forward on the path, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. And I say it's simple. Like I don't want to get too caught up in like techniques and this is mindfulness, and it can be confusing because we're talking about it. Like I think the whole path is just even simpler than that. It's beyond words. I don't want to give you guys more thoughts and ideas about like this is how you're going to get out of suffering, because it's like quicksand, and I'm in it. You know, I struggle with that all the time, and I think it's just more effective to just viscerally experience that struggle, because it is simple. Like there's suffering, and then there's happiness, there's freedom. We're just going from here to here. It's pretty straightforward. And suffering is sneaky. And it's mysterious because here we are in this room, and we're just physical beings, you know? Flesh and blood, muscle and bone. And there's not any imminent threat anywhere. Like there's not a tiger in that closet. At least I don't think Jeff put, right? Jeff? We're good. We're well clothed, we're fed, we have shelter. There's not any imminent danger. So we should be okay. Like maybe a little bit of physical discomfort. But we still suffer. It creeps in, you know? It's like, where does that come from? Like we should be just fine. Everyone's okay. But I know everyone in this room has at least experienced some suffering recently. It's just like yesterday. Like I got to give a talk, like, ugh, out of nowhere. Suffering just pops up. That's what happens. It's sneaky. We don't even know. Like, how do we peg it down? What is this thing? So I think it's simpler than any like technique I could offer or anything like that. I don't want to confuse you guys. Like it's right here. Like this is where the game is, and that's what I want to talk about a little bit. So the take home from this, like I said, if nothing else, like this is me just going toe to toe with my own suffering. But what I want to say really is that when you're on a path, a spiritual path, the key is just putting one foot in front of the other. You just keep moving forward, and that's the way. That's the quickest way to get through it. Because I'm here to find an escape. I don't know how. I don't know, like I'm practicing all of this mindfulness. I don't know how effective it is. I don't know. I mean, I've made changes in my life. There's positive things happening. Slowly things are getting better, but it's sort of the correlation is not causation sort of thing, because I feel like, well, if I practice harder and more, then something will happen, and it doesn't tend to happen, and then I'm disappointed. But there's a quote by Richard Baker Roshi, I believe, about enlightenment or meditation. No, I think I just lost the quote, so maybe you guys won't hear it, but so enlightenment is an accident, and meditation makes us more accident prone. So you can't really plan for things. And when I say that, the next step forward, just a step forward is all you need, and that's for me simple and uncomplicated. What I mean by the spiritual path, I like to think of spirituality very simply as just becoming a better person, taking care of yourself and others, experiencing more happiness, moving away from the suffering and into that freedom and that happiness. That's my simple definition. And one perspective on that for me is spiritual maturation, progress on the path, is a movement from dependence to dependability. Dependence being like, I need you, or support me, or I can't handle this, to dependability, where you stand alone and you can offer help to others. I think that, for me, is what a spiritually mature person looks like. Taking the next step, doing what's called for. And then I think that takes a lot of forms in my own life. Like I shared with you, I do experience social anxiety, and I've worked on it. It's getting better. And I don't know where that comes from precisely. I think it's a mixture of past experience and my own genetic makeup. In fact, I saw an article today on personality. It's comprised of two things. There's character traits, which are how the environment and culture influence you. And then there's temperament. Temperament dimensions is what they call it. And that's just like the biology. And they actually outlined 4 specific systems: the dopamine system, the serotonin system, testosterone system, and the oxytocin/estrogen system. And the oxytocin, for those who don't know, is sort of like the caring kind of hormone that is elicited by touch and what mothers feel when they're breastfeeding their infants. And so the idea is that we all have some sort of mixture of those systems that accounts for different aspects of our personalities. And then, of course, there's the character traits that how we express ourselves is often influenced culturally. And that just seemed appropriate because I was reflecting on my own social anxiety. And I remember one particular incidents from my childhood. I grew up in the Bay Area, in Palo Alto. And I was in first grade, and it was 1989, which I remember, because I have a blurry memory of just like a calendar thing on the wall. It said 1989. And that was also the year that, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I was a baseball fan, and the San Francisco Giants were playing the Oakland A's. So it was a Battle of the Bay is what they called it. And there was an earthquake. It was the Loma Prieta earthquake, which was like my first big earthquake. But that was also a big year because in Miss Hargrove's class, it was the first grade's first opportunity to participate in student government. So she kind of explained to us what that was. Miss Hargrove was old, by the way. That was in my memory. Nice older, I guess maybe a strict, kind of mean older lady. And she explained to us, what student council is and what you get to do. And I remember, I get to get out of class. That sounds like fun. Like I don't have to be in class. So I think maybe 8 or 10 people out of maybe a class of 30. I don't remember. It seems like a lot of people were, wanted to be one of the. I think there was two openings for a representative. So I put my name in. She did the ballot. You write your name on a scrap piece of paper. You could vote for yourself. I voted for myself, threw my name in the hat. And then she took the hat to the front of the class and would pull a name and then tally it. She read the names of who was running up on the board and then mark a tally. And every time she marked a tally, the crowd would either cheer or boo. And I don't know how many votes there were, but I remember she pulled out my ballot that I cast, because I know this because when she pulled it out, the entire class erupted in a chorus of boos. And I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what was happening. And I remember my friend was next to me. He was laughing and everyone's booing, and I didn't know how to process that. And so it felt like everybody hated me. And I remember just putting my head on my desk. And I don't remember anything else from the school. I remember the teacher said, we're not doing that anymore. So, good. That was some consolation, I think. But I do remember going home. And I went home, and then I remember my mom was standing in the kitchen, and I remember just running up to her and then grabbing her legs, because I'm a short little first grader, and just crying and sobbing in her, because I felt my world in the first grade class hates me. And that was something I could depend on right there. My mom doing what she had to do, and what came natural, and what she was great at, was loving her son. No questions asked. I was there. We embraced. And that, that's a powerful thing. We need that as humans. It sustains us, that type of love. That's dependability. And needless to say, I never ran for student council ever again. I didn't participate in extracurricular activities or go out for sports or anything like that. That really angered my dad, but I was just not willing to, like I said, social anxiety kind of stuff. I did find drugs and alcohol, which felt like a solution for a while. And needless to say, that caused a lot of pain and suffering in myself and the people close to me. In particular, my mom. I remember I did get in a lot of trouble and did spend time in the back of police cars and an ambulance a couple times. And I remember one particular incident being, in high school with my mom and her just crying. And I don't know what I had said, but I remember her crying, saying, do you want to go to prison? And just crying. And I remember I was so angry and filled with hate that it felt good almost, just good. So you feel what I feel, because, F you, that's sort of the attitude. That's painful. And I also remember having arguments with my parents and my mom in particular. I remember this because it frustrated me. I would say, I hate you, and I thought I really meant it. I hate you. And I remember my mom in her little, gentle voice saying, well, I love you. And I remember, no! But that's dependability right there. It's unconditional love a mother has for her son. That's powerful. So I went on and lived my life for a number of years. Eventually, I did go into a program of recovery. I found mindfulness, a serious commitment to mindfulness before going into that program of recovery, although I had practice even while I would drink and use, but maybe not that seriously. I think the big thing was that I got to a point where I just felt like, all right, life, living the way I am is not working. I've got to do something else. And as I said, the path is a movement from dependence to dependability, and I think spiritual maturation doesn't happen overnight. It's not something you either have or you haven't. I think there's peaks and valleys, and it meanders and wanders. And looking back on my life, I see moments where, there it is. It's coming through. There's some growth. And in particular, I remember a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think, where my mother's mother, my grandma, passed away. And I think it was my last living grandparent. And I was in California at the time. My grandmother, the funeral was going to be held in Iowa. So I flew back for the funeral, and my dad couldn't make it for a number of reasons, but it was actually kind of a good thing because he had a really contentious relationship with, at times, my mom's side of the family. But it's also tough for my mom because she was really sort of the lead in that family, and some of her, I think her sister, one of her sisters had passed away at that time, but no one else was really taking charge of this thing. My grandma was pretty old, so it wasn't, she was fortunate to live a long life, but she also outlasted a lot of her friends. That tends to happen when you live a long time. So it was a smaller funeral. And I remember how, I don't know what happened, but it was essentially came up like, who's going to say some words? Who's going to say something at the funeral? Okay, I will. I'll say some words at the funeral. And the night before, I remember just writing up some stuff. And the funeral came, and I said a few words, and they were well received. And I saw my mom, and it was, touching for her that, I was able to make a worthy commemoration of her mother's life. And walking back from the church, I was walking my mom back to the car, and she looked at me, and she said, I don't know what I would do without you. And she cried, and I cried, and I hugged her. We embraced. And my mom's short, and so I was hugging her. And it's like, just like in first grade when I was, and here I was hugging her. And I was being dependable. And I was, that's pain and confusion, like I had in first grade. Pain and confusion. Why does everybody hate me? But my mom was loving me. And my mom's facing that big question. We don't know why we're here. We don't know what happens when you die. Her mom's gone. She's in pain and confusion. But Mom, I love you. I can hug you. I love you. I'm here. That's dependability. That's dependability. There's a phrase that I love from a spiritual teacher. And the phrase is, love is a wound that never heals. And for a while, I think I liked it. It sounded poetic. I didn't really know what it meant. But that's what it meant. Because there I was, embracing my mom in the middle of this huge mystery of death and suffering and existence. Those are the types of moments where beliefs, they don't stand up. They don't stand up. You just have to take action. Practice the wound of love. That's what that teacher says. Love is a wound that never heals. Practice the wound of love. And it's so weird, you know? It's weird because it was sad, and you're experiencing sadness. We're crying. But we're sad because there's care and concern for the person that's gone. And there's also, there's love. It's love, and it's sadness, and it's bittersweet. And it seems to me like the sustaining force behind existence. It's why we're here. It's like life meeting itself, and not know, like, oh my God, what the hell's going on here? Like, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big, powerful feeling. The wound that never heals. Practice the wound of love. So, you know, I don't have a lot of answers for a lot of things, and practice mindfulness because I'm looking for an escape from suffering, and sometimes it takes a lot of hard work. Sometimes it feels easy. Sometimes it's really hard. And I don't know what the escape looks like, or how you escape, where to go for the escape. But I know if you want out, you just keep moving forward. That's a quick way. No detours. Go straight through it. You go straight through it. If you want out, keep moving. One foot in front of the other. That's what this talk is. I really did not want to give this talk. But, you know, you're out of options. What's the next thing to do? Well, fine. Let me just see what hate is like, what it's got. So, I think I said everything I want to say. And I'd like to pose a question to the community. I'd love to hear what you guys think. The question is about just putting one foot in front of the other. How do you guys experience that in your life? Is that connected to your practice of mindfulness? One foot in front of the other. What does that look like for you?